Okay, we are back. One of my favorite guests ever. She's been on the show. I think this is her 4th time on the show. If it isn't, it should be her 400th time on the show. She knows all about the stuff that I love up there. I'm really into outer space stuff. Duh, don't act like my brain's out of space, but I'm really into that stuff. Make her welcome, everybody. Cheri Adams, right here, Director of Astronomy. An old song, Cheri, from the Broadway musical, Bye Bye Birdie. We love you, Cheri. Oh, yes, we do. You know more about astronomy than anybody else or you. But that's one of my favorite songs from that Broadway musical, which you probably never saw. Paul Lynde was in it and all the great people. So, first of all, you want to talk about this or tell us about that pod, or how do you want to start?
Well, let's start with at the museum. We're very busy.
Okay.
We just opened a new exhibit in our astronomy wing, and it's on exoplanets. Those are planets that are in orbit around other stars. And this was a multi-year project. We were awarded a grant from NASA. It was $818,000 that they gave to us to develop this exhibit.
Great.
And we're very excited. We opened it about mid-October. And there's lots of really cool interactive components to it, explaining about exoplanets and about how they're detected. And there's been nearly 1,800 that have been confirmed, found exoplanets, and so it's very exciting.
You'd be so proud of me because I think I know some of you telling me where I'm off base. When the, what's that new telescope out there? The new one? There's a new one out there. What's the old one called? Hubble?
Hubble.
There's another one out there, isn't there?
James Webb will be launched in a few years.
Hubble's the one then.
Yes.
Well, when Hubble shines on a sun way millions of light years away, at times when they're looking at it, it gets dim. That's because there's a planet rotating in front of it.
Very good.
What do you think,
Very
guys?
good.
Am I
Very
learning
good.
good?
Yeah.
Am I learning good stuff? You proud of
Those
me?
very, very proud.
I say I'm going to have Cheri back on, so I got to really study these History Channel stuff on astronomy.
Those are transiting planets,
So,
yes.
yeah, it dims the light a little bit.
That's
and with
correct.
lenses, tells you all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Well, I'll bet when you guys heard about this donation, you went crazy. That's
Yes,
great. That's
yes,
a lot of
it's
money.
spectacular. It was a wonderful award, and it's a grant that people propose those from planetariums and museums, and they give out very few awards, and we were very excited.
Well, I think those that donated that money knows that Cheri Adams is there. That's who we have to donate this money to because that's the one. That's the one at Boonshoft. Yeah. You want to do the pod next, or you want to talk about that next?
We can do that.
Okay.
We can do this.
So you want me to just set this up here? I'll put this
Sure.
cardboard up here.
Okay. So last month, there was a European Space Agency sent a space probe. It's been flying through space. It's called Rosetta, and it's been flying through space for 10 years. It's traveled a distance of 4 billion miles, and in November, it had a secondary probe that left the main probe and landed on the comet, and that was a feat in itself. It's just amazing.
Scientists said, and you tell me if I'm wrong again, that's like being in New York, trying to hit a hole-in-one, and going into it in California.
Right.
10 years it's been up there, and to do all these numbers, figures, it's amazing, Cheri.
It is spectacular. And the probes aren't necessarily working as they travel these long distances, and so they have to wake them up, and it's always with bated breath that they're wondering whether that's what they just did recently to the New Horizons space probe is on its way to Pluto, and it will arrive there sometime next summer. And same thing, they just woke it up recently and sighed some relief that it actually perked up and is ready to go.
I know they were so frightened because it landed within a crater and not enough sun is getting on to keep it.
Right. Well, comets themselves are moving just as all objects in space are moving. And so the feat in itself of sending a probe first in orbit around the comet was spectacular.
Yes.
And then to launch a piece of that to land on the comet was even a greater feat. So what happened was the comet itself is not very large in size, and therefore it doesn't have very much mass, so it doesn't have very much gravity. So when the secondary probe landed on the surface, it actually bounced. It went as high as about 2/3 of a mile and then came back down, bounced a second time.
Everyone had a heart attack.
Right, right. And then finally it did land successfully. It was supposed to harpoon itself into the comet because what ends up happening is that not only is it spinning, but as the comet is in orbit around the sun and it gets closer to the sun, it will allow gases to escape out of it that are trapped, frozen in the comet itself. And so they were concerned that this outgassing would disrupt the little probe and cause it to, leave the surface. So the harpoons didn't work. It kind of nudged itself up against a cliff wall. And because it wasn't in the presence of the sun, the batteries, which are solar powered, did wear out.
You gotta have the
so
sun.
they're hoping that as it gets closer to the sun, that at some point in time, it will be positioned in such a way that it will have the sun's light shining on the batteries and it'll recharge it.
Okay.
So what I was doing here was I was bringing you a simulated comet. So we often think of comets as being dirty snowballs. So if you think of them as containing lots of water ice and lots of carbon dioxide, dry ice, and lots of other materials, some organic materials. And that's what is the main composition of the comet itself. So what ends up happening is that when it's out in deep space, it just remains a frozen blob. But as it makes its orbit around the sun and gets closer to the sun, it starts having this outgassing occurring.
Okay.
And when that happens, it gets these beautiful tails. And so comets can be quite glorious sights to see when they get close enough to the Earth. So.
Well, let me ask you one question which I've never asked. Where the comet came from, is that normally an exploding star? Is that where all these things, something had to give them that push,
Well,
if you
actually,
understand what I mean.
that's one of the reasons why we want to know more about comets, is because we think that they formed at the very early stages of our own solar system. And because of that, we don't think that they've changed very much since they've been in the depths of space, kind of in a deep freeze. So we think they've maintained their integrity the entire time.
So they're not looking
So-
at a supernova that could have exploded, that would have
No,
caused
this is just pieces that are left over from the formation of our
the
own
big,
solar
original
system.
Big Bang?
Well, from our own the formation of our own
Our
solar
own
system's
solar
been around for about
Okay.
5 billion years. So this is some of the material we think has not changed. Whereas like the Earth, when we think about the Earth has changed very much over time. At portions of time, it was heavily volcanic material that was, lots of volcanoes were erupting, and other times where it was under a deep freeze of, some ice ages. So the Earth itself has not maintained the same outer core that it's had throughout all of history, whereas we think comets have. That's why we're interested in the comets, is to learn more about those.
And tell us one more time, when can they come and watch your show when you do your
Well, every day, 7 days a week, we have planetarium shows. We do a minimum of 3 different types of shows daily. We do a traditional astronomy show where you can see what's in the sky on that particular night.
What are the times of the 3?
Well, every weekday they're 2, 3, and 4.
2,
and
3,
then
and 4.
a full dome
Okay.
show, and then we have a new 3D show, and that's called Space Junk, and it's fascinating to think about all of the different probes that we've put up into space and orbit
Scary.
around the Earth. Well, it is a
Scary,
little
isn't it?
bit, that's true. So they should come and see the 3D show.
Well, I figured it was pretty bad when they sent Clint Eastwood up there to repair that satellite. Did you know about that, Cheri? And he wanted to know what his
great.
electronics was doing on a Russian atomic satellite. Was that just a movie?
I'm afraid so.
Isn't she great, everybody? I love Sue. You could be on 7 days a week and still we could learn something from her every day. I love this kind of stuff, you know I do. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And the 2, 3, and 4 shows every day at Boonshoft.
Weekdays, and then
Weekdays.
all Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon.
And Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4.
Monday through Friday,
Monday through
and
Friday,
then more
okay.
shows on Saturday and Sunday afternoons.
You got to go and see these shows. It's just unbelievable. And you know how this lady, she knows her stuff, so you know it's got to be good. It's just got to be good. That's all I say about Susie. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having
Cheri
us
is
here.
the one.